The IPO market may get another big boost. According to the Wall Street Journal, SoftBank is considering an IPO of its $100 billion investment fund. The SoftBank Vision Fund has an impressive portfolio, including Uber and WeWork. CEO Masa Yoshi-san is also considering further fundraising. Here to break it down is Liz Hoffman, one of the reporters in the Journal piece, and our very own John Fortt and Deirdre Bosa. Great to have you all. Liz, I'm going to start off with you. It was your piece, fascinating piece. This really sounds like a money grab. I mean, not only is he considering this IPO, the Vision Fund, but also fundraising or wanting to fundraise for a second Vision Fund. How big could this become?
Look, SoftBank raised almost $100 billion 2 years ago, and everyone said, that's way too much money. They'll never be able to spend it. And they spent it. And so they're out looking for more. The Mr. San, as you said, just has a ravenous appetite to do deals. They've been throwing money around all over the world at just a breakneck speed. They're basically out at this point, so they're looking for some options. And yeah, an IPO, looking at retail, is one of them.
It's funny you use the term throwing money around. I mean, you also write in your piece that he was in China. He inked several deals and basically committed several billions of dollars that SoftBank doesn't currently have because it's spent all of the original money for the Vision Fund. I mean, what's your sense as to the discipline with which they are applying all this money? I mean, it is a lot of money. Is there that much opportunity out there?
Look, discipline has always been the question around SoftBank, around anybody that's spending money at that kind of pace. Masa is a handshake guy. He is a gut-driven guy. He gave Jack Ma, money 20 minutes after meeting him, and that turned into a multi-billion-dollar stake in Alibaba. So that's the ride that you're with when you're with SoftBank. That's the ride you're on. And, we haven't seen the end of the game yet. And, of course, you have to wonder when, retail is always the last in line for a lot of these opportunities. And so if that's where their fundraising plan is headed, I think you have to worry a little bit.
What's his batting average?
I don't know, but look, they've been marking up a lot of their own investments so far, right? So they were early into WeWork, continued to put money in at increasing valuations. They haven't seen a ton of validation from the either the public markets or sales yet. They did flip their stake in Flipkart to Walmart at quite a large markup. They had a position in Nvidia, which is a public stock that did very well. Mm-hmm. That said, they've got a bunch of IPOs coming down the pipe, right? Uber is going to come shortly. They're in Slack. WeWork filed confidentially for an IPO earlier this year. So it'll remain to be seen. But, they've been early in some things, but they've also been they haven't been afraid to put in money relatively late at pretty rich valuations.
And, John, where does that leave the public who might have a chance to invest in a piece of this fund?
Well, this morning, I called this the first sign of the tech stock apocalypse. This is terrifying because SoftBank kind of on its own has caused this inflation in valuations that's pretty staggering. And the private market has a way of kind of self-validating, where if the next round is bigger than the last round, then the people in the last round must have been smart. I don't think we've ever seen in the modern era, kind of post-internet, the kind of impact that one firm has had on startups writ large. So the idea behind the Vision Fund, I think, was supposed to be they're going to make these generational bets on technology that's going to change entire industries and just needs patient capital, to give them runway. But now he wants to sell that to investors. If he hadn't done that in the first place, a lot of these companies probably would have gone public earlier to begin with and would have been disciplined. Now they're like a bunch of post-college students living off of mom and dad, finding themselves.
Tell
what
us how
happens
you really
when they get cut off? What happens?
Well,
we don't know.
That begs the next question, Deirdre, and that is, for all of the young companies out there, why go public when you have potentially hundreds of billions of dollars sloshing around that Masayoshi-san wants to deploy?
Right. I love John's comparison. To be frank, the private markets, have just been sloshing with cash, and SoftBank and Masa-san have been a big part of that. So you see companies like Lyft go public at a valuation of $20 billion, Uber potentially more than $90 billion. I think there's a lot of ordinary investors who are interested in these companies, but they have no way of getting into them until they hit public markets. So a Vision Fund IPO could essentially be a way for ordinary mom-and-pop investors to get into some of these hot tech names. Yes, at a later stage, because SoftBank, that's the stage at which SoftBank is cutting these checks, but at least get a piece of them before they go public. And we see what has happened to Lyft, a very anticipated name that went public at a higher price just to fall in the subsequent weeks. So that's one way. But I also understand what John is saying in that SoftBank has given these companies more reason to stay private for longer.
And Liz, in terms of the second fund potentially that Vision could raise, the structure of it would be very interesting. It could actually allow institutions and pension funds, right, to get a piece of the action.
That's the idea. I mean, the largest pools of capital out there that SoftBank's been unable to or unwilling to touch are the really traditional asset managers, public pensions. They've gone for very big checks from Middle Eastern governments for the most part, with some smaller checks from companies like Apple and Qualcomm that Masa knows very well and that are very close to SoftBank as a phone company. So, they're going to need to court the sort of traditional pools of capital out there that they haven't been able to yet. I don't know that there's another $100 billion on the sidelines out there, and so they're going to have to pass a hat.